Welcome back to Manhwa Heartbeats. Today, we'll be recapping a manhwa called The Deposed Empress's Scandal. Don't forget to subscribe, it helps us a lot. Enjoy. The stage is set for an execution, and someone is about to lose their head. The crowd gathers, and the air is tense. A voice in the crowd asks if the person in chains is really their supposed empress. Another person replies that it's the woman who committed treason and was removed from her high office. The person in chains is introduced as Lucentia de Aradel. People start murmuring among themselves, calling her a witch. They look at her long black hair and say there's no way that hair is natural, so the rumors must be true. They shout for the executioner to hurry up and put her to eternal rest. But Lucentia stays calm, wearing a straight, emotionless look on her face. She has lived a tough life, a really wretched life. Now, let's take a journey down memory lane. Lucentia is born into the Aradel house in the Aga Empire. Her family has a lot of power and is well known, even among the nobility. But for Lucentia, all that money, power, and fame don't mean much. She is a peaceful and easygoing young lady, quite different from her peers. Her father is obsessed with having more women in powerful roles, so he has many daughters, many of whom are not his legitimate children. Lucentia is just the 12th daughter in this long line. Despite being an illegitimate child, Lucentia is a beautiful girl with magical-looking blue eyes that shine brightly. She looks just like her birth mother. Unfortunately, her father's wife, the Countess, particularly hates Lucentia. In her childhood, Lucentia believes that her life is nothing more than that of a disliked and unfortunate illegitimate child. But things get even worse for her when she meets him. Her father introduces her to a little boy who turns out to be royalty. The Count tells her to greet the young master with respect, and she nods, feeling nervous. This boy is the prince, the heir to the throne of the Aga Empire. In the Aradel house, there's a sudden burst of excitement. The other children can't keep it together. They run around, shouting and giggling at the surprise of having a prince in their home. Some of them look scared, while others look thrilled. Lucentia feels a mix of emotions as she watches the scene unfold. For some reason, she feels terrified of the prince. Even though he is just a little boy, not much older than she is, he has a powerful aura that makes her feel small. She knows he is not like the other kids in her family. She tries to stay quiet, hoping not to catch his eye or draw any attention to herself. But her attempts to blend in are useless. The young prince calls for her, and to her shock, out of all the Count's children, he chooses her to come closer. "Hello," he says, smiling warmly. "It's a pleasure to meet you." His words catch her off guard. He is speaking directly to her. Her heart races, and she feels both honored and scared. Why would he choose to speak to her when there are so many other children around? As time goes on, the young prince makes a big decision. He chooses Lucentia, a mere 12-year-old girl, to be his crown princess. This news shakes her world. Her father, blinded by greed and ambition, does not hesitate to agree to the engagement. He sees this as a golden opportunity, and doesn't say a word against it. For him, securing a position next to the future emperor of the Aga Empire is the only thing that matters. He dreams of power and influence, and he thinks this engagement will bring that to him. A few years later, Lucentia is married to the young prince, and becomes the empress of the Aga Empire. She is now the wife of the emperor. Her father, feeling proud, takes on the title of the Great Count, celebrating his daughter's new status. He believes he can use his son-in-law, the emperor, as a puppet to carry out his own plans. But what he doesn't realize is that the emperor is much smarter and craftier than he expected. In just 5 years, the young emperor grows stronger and becomes more powerful. He takes complete control of the throne, pushing the noble faction into a tight corner. Lucentia, once celebrated as the empress, starts to feel trapped in a situation she never wanted. The young emperor, instead of being the kind and loving husband she hoped for, begins to use her for his own gain. He exploits her ruthlessly, taking advantage of the power he has gained. He starts to spread terrible rumors about her. It begins with whispers and then spreads like wildfire through the empire. The emperor fabricates lies to turn the public against her. Suddenly, she is no longer seen as the beloved empress, but as a wicked woman who loves nothing but luxury and pleasure. People talk about how she spends money on extravagant things, and say that she has stolen from the imperial family. They claim she is hiding their wealth. The emperor goes even further and spreads the most awful rumor of all. He tells people that Lucentia forced a miscarriage on the emperor's pregnant mistress. This is truly diabolical. With each lie, the emperor twists the story more and more, making Lucentia the villain in the eyes of the people. She feels alone and betrayed, trapped in a life she never asked for. The public opinion shifts against her, and she realizes that the man she thought she could trust is now her greatest enemy. People quickly start calling her the Black Witch. This title spreads through the crowd, and soon everyone knows her by it. One day, someone reaches out to her with a hand, offering something. Lucentia looks closely and asks what it is. The answer shocks her: poison. Confusion and anger flood her. She demands to know what this means. She can't believe someone would suggest she kill the emperor. She knows he wouldn't fall for such a clumsy trick. He wants her to take the life of her vicious husband, the emperor. She insists that he stop this foolishness immediately. Her father retorts, calling her naive. He believes the emperor will never let them live, and they must act fast before it's too late. He raises his voice, insisting that they have to take action first if they want to stay alive. Suddenly, guards rush toward them, shouting for them to kneel and calling them criminals. The young emperor, who has been lurking in the shadows, steps forward. He tells her father to surrender and promises a quick death. The count scoffs at this, expressing his anger over everything he has done for the young emperor, and insisting he won't go down without a fight. In a panic, he pushes Lucentia in front of him as a shield. The attack meant for him strikes her instead. Feeling betrayed, she realizes her father has used her to protect himself. While she reels from the attack, he takes the chance to flee, escaping from the emperor and the guards. He tells her not to worry, her father will be caught soon enough. She realizes just how low her father has stooped by using her as a shield. The emperor touches her lip, shaking his head, calling it all utterly pathetic. But he also acknowledges her, saying that it's all thanks to her that he is where he is now, his empress. The emperor has emerged as the final victor in the long battle for the throne. All the nobles who opposed him have been executed, and the Aradel family has been destroyed. As they face execution, her family drowns her in curses, blaming her for everything. They scream that she's a curse, and that they would have preferred it if she had never been born at all. Today is the day of her execution. The charges are read, and Lucentia, the former empress, is sentenced to death. The rope is cut. Slash. The deed is done, and Lucentia de Aradel is pronounced dead. Later that night, a carriage moves quietly through the streets of the Aga Empire. The full moon shines brightly, lighting up the beautiful night. The rider of the carriage wears a cloak to hide his identity. He removes the cloak and tells the passenger that it's safe now, and they can come out. But it's not Lucentia who steps out. She insists that Lucentia is dead and gone. From now on, she wants to be called Rose. The mystery man in the carriage accepts her new name and asks where she would like to go. Rose takes a moment to think, her mind racing as she considers her options. Finally, she decides. She says she wants to go somewhere, anywhere but here. This is the start of an adventure. Lucentia wakes up suddenly, her heart pounding in her chest. She has just had a terrible nightmare that leaves her feeling scared and confused. She sits up in bed, trying to shake off the images from her dream. This nightmare feels very familiar, and she realizes that it's not the first time she has had this dream. In fact, it's been happening over and over again, and each time, it feels just as real and frightening as the last. She begins to think that it might be a prophetic dream, a warning about what could happen in the future. Ever since she was a little girl, she has experienced these kinds of dreams. They don't always show her a clear future that she can control, but they often help her understand things that are going on around her. Some of these dreams have even helped her avoid danger. One dream showed her a vision of her own death as the empress, a shocking and terrifying image that she couldn't forget. But instead of trying to change her fate, after seeing that vision, she accepted it. To her, dying as the empress seemed to be the only way to find true freedom from all the chains that held her down. When she was in a desperate situation, an alchemist created a doll for her that looked just like her. This clever trick allowed her to fake her own death during her execution. After her staged death, she found a new home in the Terran Empire, a place that is known to be hostile and dangerous to the Aga Empire. In this new kingdom, she takes on a new identity and becomes Lady Rose. She has worked hard and now runs the Chaos Chamber of Commerce, which is the best chamber of commerce in the Terran Empire. This place gives her a sense of purpose and freedom that she never had before. It has been 5 years since Rose staged her death and escaped from her old life. Even after all this time, the young emperor still haunts her dreams. Each night, he comes to her, reminding her of her past, and it feels like a constant torment. But Rose has come to terms with this. She understands that these dreams are not just random, they are a warning. Something is coming, and her experiences with the Emperor and the Aga Empire are not over yet. Now, things are different for Rose. She is no longer the weak empress she once was. She stands by the window and looks out, watching her friends Gray and Casa as they chat together. A smile spreads across her face. She knows what she must do. If this fate is unavoidable, then she has no choice but to face it head-on. Rose decides that she will risk everything she has to confront whatever challenges come her way. She is ready to end this once and for all, no matter what it takes. About a year ago, Rose had a meeting with the Duke of the Terran Empire, known as the Aten Duchy. He was surprised to learn that the owner of the famous Chaos Chamber of Commerce is a woman. During their conversation, the Duke asks her if she is indeed the renowned Rose, the one everyone talks about. She nods and confirms that she is. The Duke introduces himself as Duke Aten. In the Terran Empire, House Aten is well known for being a family of sword masters. They have trained for generations to uphold their family name, which carries a lot of weight. This reputation makes Duke Aten a perfect ally for Rose. She knows she needs someone like him by her side for protection. He asks if she really can solve the problems plaguing his territory. He thinks it might be a fool's errand since many merchants have tried to help and all of them have failed. But Rose stays calm and confident, insists that there is nothing she cannot accomplish. With a smile, she mentions that she has heard rumors suggesting that if anyone could fix the problems in his territory, it would be her. The Duke agrees, acknowledging her confidence. Rose believes in the strength of House Aten, so she reaches into her bag and pulls out a document. This document outlines her conditions and terms for taking on the challenging task. If she succeeds, these are the conditions she wants to be met. Duke Aten takes a moment to look over the document. Finally, the Duke speaks again. He tells Rose that if she makes this proposal to him and still fails, there will be consequences. She confidently tells him that she won't let him down. The Duke praises her boldness for standing up to him like this. He says he is trusting that her actions will prove her words right. She simply replies, "Chaos always keeps its words." She believes he will see this soon enough. It is how chaos will become the best in the entire continent. In the Terran Empire, life is tough, because the land suffers through harsh winters for half the year. Until now, no one has been brave enough to guarantee a solution for the cold. A man asks if they really can accomplish this big task. Another man answers confidently. He says, if Lady Rose says so, then it will be done. Now, it has been a year since Rose first met Duke Aiton. The construction plan she set in motion should be finished by now. Suddenly, someone knocks at the door, and Rose tells them to come in. A person enters and informs her that someone from Aiton is here. He says all the promises have been fulfilled. If that is true, then it is definitely time for the harvest. Rose realizes she has finally caught Duke Aiton. But then, she finds herself in another prophetic dream. She stands in what looks like a battlefield. As she looks around, she hears a voice commanding everyone to charge into battle. It tells them to overthrow the enemy. She wonders who is leading this charge into war. Then she sees him, a handsome warrior. He looks fierce and is dressed in his battle suit. He seems both dangerous and charming at the same time. Rose watches as this brave warrior fights and triumphs in battle, taking down one opponent after another. It is incredible to see. This man cuts through his enemies like a reaper, and she can hardly take her eyes off him. In the middle of all this action, the warrior has a bored look on his face, as if fighting is just another ordinary day for him. There's blood everywhere, and then everything suddenly brightens up, like the place has transformed. Rose spots a bright light in the distance and starts to walk towards it. As she gets closer, she is amazed by what she sees. The light is coming from a man, but she can't see his face yet. She refuses to believe this is a prophetic dream, because it feels different from her usual dreams. She wonders why her mind showed her this vision. Suddenly, the man, the source of the light, speaks to her. He tells her, "Wake up. Wake up, Rose." He turns around, and now she can see his face clearly. It's the warrior from the battlefield. Wait a minute, did he just notice her? Did he really just speak to her in her dream? Rose looks at the young warrior in amazement. Why is he appearing to her in her prophetic dreams without any clothes? Then she wakes up in her bed, hand on her head, still in disbelief about the dream. She thinks it's a silly dream. If it's not a real prophetic dream that shows the future, then it must be about her own frustration. But then, almost to contradict her thoughts, the handsome warrior keeps showing up in her dreams. Whenever she feels scared about the emperor, the young warrior always appears, almost like he's there to protect her. It's funny, because whenever she looks into his eyes, which always seem bored and uninterested, she feels safe, like she's inside a strong fortress where nothing can get to her. On those nights when the young warrior visits her dreams, she can forget her fears and sleep peacefully. Who is this young man, this warrior with black hair and black eyes? What role does he play in her life? A new day begins, and they are at the Chaos Merchant Association. Grey greets Rose and tells her that her scary look won't change anything, no matter how hard she stares. Something seems off. Rose has just heard the news about the Duke of Aiton passing away. She asks what happened, and Grey tells her he died of old age. This surprises her, because the Duke died just a week before their contract was supposed to be signed. She feels frustrated, because her prophetic dreams didn't warn her about the Duke's death. Sometimes, her dreams seem useless like that. They should have shown her this important information, but she has no control over them. She's angry about this death, and takes a moment to gather her thoughts before asking about the Duke's successor. Grey tells her that the successor has gone to the Emperor for approval, but even with all their informants, they can't find any information about him. He's a mystery to the Chaos Chamber. Grey adds that no one has seen the new Duke yet. Rose warns him to be careful, because the new Duke comes from a family of swordmasters. He should not be reckless in trying to find out more about him. Rose asks Grey how old the successor of the Duke of Aten is. Grey replies that he is 30 years old. She then inquires about the chances of the man liking men, and Grey quickly assures her that it is none. Not satisfied yet, she asks about his interest in serious women. Grey shrugs and admits that there isn't enough information to be sure. Rose gazes at a document, deep in thought, before finally deciding to go to the Aten Duchy. In the North Aten Duchy, heavy snow blankets the ground. Local nobles are waiting for an audience with the new Duke, deliberately creating a tense atmosphere. A dark-haired man stands up and addresses the vermin in the territory, creating an unsettling vibe. An older man with glasses mentions that they have been caught. The dark-haired man inquires about the mastermind behind the schemes. The man with glasses suspects that some local nobles might be involved and also raises concerns about Duke Duncan in the capital, who has been difficult lately. The young man assures them that it's all right and listens as the man with glasses asks what they should do next. He declares that he will handle the situation. I recognize him as the young warrior from Rose's dreams. The man with glasses salutes him, promising to fulfill his wishes. Jack, the man in glasses, addresses the young master and asks what his wishes are. He informs him that the Chaos Guild is on their way to see the Duke right now. The young master tells Jack to let them in when they arrive. Meanwhile, Rose and her group arrive at the North Aten Duchy and get out of their carriage. Jack greets them at the entrance and leads them inside. Grey apologizes for coming without notice, but Jack assures him it's fine, because the Duke has been expecting them. This surprises Grey since they never told the North Aten Duchy about their visit. Jack guides them further in and mentions that this is the first time they will meet the newly appointed Duke. He opens the door to the Duke's chamber, revealing the dark-haired man from Rose's dreams. He's dressed elegantly, and she recognizes him instantly as Khan Van Aten, the Duke. Rose feels amazed. The handsome warrior, who gives her a sense of security, is indeed the Duke. Grey introduces himself as Grey Heed, the leader of the Chaos Guild. The Duke fixes his gaze on Rose, completely ignoring Grey. They offer their condolences for his loss, but he coldly tells them to get to the point. Rose wonders if he knows she is the true leader of the Chaos Chamber. She gathers her courage and speaks directly to the Duke. She introduces herself as Rose von Isaac, leader of the Chaos Guild. The Duke asks what they want. Rose hands him some documents and explains that the previous Duke made a pact with her before he died. She says that if she solved the Aten problem, the former Duke promised to be her guardian. She tells the Duke that she has fulfilled her end of the deal, and now that the previous Duke is gone, she asks him to uphold their agreement. The Duke looks at her intently, reading through the documents. He acknowledges the deal, and Rose is surprised by how easily he accepts it. But Khan Van isn't finished. He tells her there will be a change to the deal. Instead of being his ward or under his guardianship, she will be his lover. He is cold, serious, and bold, leaving her confused about what this means. Will she accept his proposal? Is a love story starting to unfold? Rose is shocked by Khan Van's words. Just look at the expression on his face. He doesn't want her to use him as a shield against the bothersome nobles. She explains that it's just a precaution against nuisances like them. Marriage proposals can be complicated. The young Duke tells her she is pretty clever. Rose stands her ground, speaking firmly. She reminds him that she has already done her part of the agreement, and now it's his turn to honor her request. She challenges him, asking what makes him think she would ever agree to his new proposal. Khan Van bluntly states that she is the one who is desperate. Rose's fists clench, his words sting. How can he call her, the head of the Chaos Guild, desperate? It's as if he thinks there's anything she can't achieve with the guild's name behind her. Khan Van points out the real issue. The head of the guild, in all her glory, desires Duke Aiton. This newly appointed duke is not a naive heir who just inherited his title. She wishes she had gathered more information beforehand. Rose smiles. She knows she has to make the best of the situation. She tells the Duke that adding new conditions after she has fulfilled her part of the bargain is a breach of trust. Khan Van finds this interesting. Rose says she has heard that contracts made in the temple are linked to divine oaths. Once these contracts are sworn, a lifelong commitment is made until they are fulfilled. Those who break them face severe consequences. She claims it's the perfect fit, because what contract could be more solid than one sworn before death itself? She asks Khan Van if he really thinks this will work. With a blank expression, the Duke says yes. Rose continues, saying that since he has added new conditions to their already fulfilled contract, it's only fair for her to modify the terms as well. She addresses him as His Grace and states her condition. She has the right to refuse any unwanted physical contact. Khan Van asks if that means she is refusing any intimacy, and she confidently replies with a firm yes. Casa, one of her allies, smirks at this. Rose insists it should be written in the new contract that any and all physical intimacy, even if required for their roles as Duke and Duchess, must be mutually agreed upon. She asks Khan Van if he agrees to this. He stands up, moves closer to her, and says he agrees. Khan Van is close to Rose, and he speaks to her directly. He asks what will happen if she suddenly feels the urge to pounce on him. Rose stays calm and tells him that he is certainly handsome enough to make someone swoon, but people have different tastes. She just gives him a compliment about his looks. She reassures him not to worry. She won't cross any lines just because he's good-looking. He finds it fascinating how confident she is. He wonders if romantic attraction can really be controlled. Rose replies that she has learned from experience. She's been through it all before. Khan Van asks if she has been married before, and she confirms she has a past relationship, but is now divorced. She feels confident that she will never do anything to jeopardize their contract, because she needs it very much. Khan Van stretches out the document, telling her she should sign it. He adds that if the contract really matters to her, she should remember never to betray him. If she truly values her life, that's the best advice he can give her. Rose promises that she won't falter on their agreement. Rose waits for his instructions about witnessing the authenticity of their contract at the temple. Khan Van says it's all right, and as she tries to leave, he says he wants to ask her something. She tells him to go ahead, hoping he's not planning to add another complication to the contract. Khan Van suddenly asks if she is a peeping Tom. She is shocked by his question and stays silent. He interprets her silence as a lot about who she is. Casa and the rest of her crew laugh at her as they start to leave, and Khan Van walks in the opposite direction. The Duke finds it amusing that someone approached him from behind without him noticing. He starts to think about the prophetic dream, wondering if he shares the same ability. It surprises him that a woman with such skills is the head of the Chaos Guild. Casa continues to tease Rose. The Duke reflects that he tried to release his energy while they were talking, but there was no reaction from her at all. So, he assumes she's not trained. However, he still has his doubts. What if she is hiding her true power? He thinks it's impossible for her to be strong enough to deceive him. If she were, she would be more than human. It wouldn't make sense for her to take the contract if she were a real threat. Even though she seems scared, he notices her strong will to survive. As the head of the Chaos Guild, she could have anything she wants, so what could she possibly be afraid of? Khan Van keeps wondering about her. He calls for Jack and asks if his report is confirmed. He wants to know if Rose is really the daughter of a fallen baron. Jack confirms that this is what he found out, and the Duke asks him to investigate her again, because something feels off. He tells Jack to dig deep and leave no stone unturned. Jack looks a little confused by the Duke's sudden interest, and asks if he really wants him to start the investigation from the very beginning. The Duke asks Jack if this is a new thing for him, questioning his orders. Jack apologizes and leaves, leaving the Duke alone. He goes over the contract again, thinking about Rose, the head of the Chaos Guild. Rose von Isaac is an interesting name, with an intriguing personality. She is a mystery to him. He wonders if she realizes what she's getting herself into and smiles at the thought. Khan Van genuinely wonders who she really is and what she hides behind that name. There is so much mystery and curiosity surrounding her, and it's becoming quite intriguing. In Rose's carriage, they are on their way home after meeting the Duke. Rose mentions that today is the first time she has seen the young master. Casa laughs and says that the Duke actually flinched when he called Rose a peeping Tom, someone who secretly watches others for pleasure. Casa is sure that Rose noticed the Duke's killing intent. Since Casa is a mercenary and knows that the Duke is a sword master, he realizes it would be impossible to sneak up on him. Gray, who has been quiet, finally speaks up. He turns to Lady Rose and tells her that House Aiton is full of mystery. He explains that while all the Dukes are sword masters, not much is known about them, which really frustrates him. In the past, the women who married these Dukes often faced many hardships. He mentions that the previous Duke was handsome, even at his age, but he wasn't interested in women, so Gray didn't worry much about him. However, the new Duke of Aiton is different. The young man he saw today is breathtakingly beautiful, which makes Gray wonder if it goes against what people expect. Casa bursts out laughing, and Rose thinks to herself about why Gray had to say that out loud. Gray reassures Rose that he trusts her, and will follow all her decisions. Still, he is concerned about the possibility of her getting romantically involved with the Duke. Rose understands his worries but insists that both she and the Duke are just using each other for their needs, nothing more. Gray looks serious as he points out that the Chaos Guild isn't as powerful as Duke Aiton, but they can still gather a strong force. He emphasizes that the Chaos Guild isn't weak. Rose explains that her real enemy is the Emperor of Arga. Even if the Chaos Guild could somehow destroy Arga, it wouldn't be normal. If a mere guild took down a country, it would cause other countries to lose trust in all guilds, seeing them as a threat. She tells Gray that she cannot put her people at risk because of her past mistakes. Rose is determined not to let anyone get hurt because of her. Gray agrees and says he's with her on everything, but they shouldn't let their guard down. He adds that something stuck with him from their visit to the Duke earlier. The butler acted like he already knew they were coming. Jack, the butler, tells them that the Duke is waiting for them. Rose thinks about how there might be a risk of her true identity being revealed. Gray asks if they shouldn't take precautions and tighten control over their informants. Rose shakes her head and says there's no need for that. She doesn't plan to keep her identity a secret. If it gets out, then so be it. Gray looks unhappy with her response, but Rose reassures him that the Duke won't be too worried about it. She believes there are no eternal secrets in the world. What she's really curious about is whether the Duke is some kind of peeping Tom too. She wonders how he recognized her. Could it be from her dreams? She thinks it's possible that her dreams aren't just visions of the future, but something more. When she dreams, it feels like she's actually there, experiencing everything in a real way. Gray calls her name, Lady Rose, and asks if anything else is bothering her. She replies that it's nothing. But deep down, she knows that the man from her dreams is Duke Aiton, and she desperately needs him. It feels crazy, like something out of a novel. Rose wonders if this is fate. Back at the guild, everyone is talking about the current situation. One man asks how she could do this, and another wonders what more she could possibly want since she just announced she's going to be the Duke's mistress. Rose tells them not to panic. This is something she has to do and asks them to understand her decision. Someone else asks who she made a deal with, a sword master, her. They want to know how she could even think about being involved with a sword master. The room fills with noise, and voices rise as everyone shares their opinions. One person says it's because he's rich, while another comments on his good looks, saying 100 sword masters wouldn't compare. Because of how they are acting. He bangs his hand on the table to get their attention, and says it's fine, they're not getting anywhere with this conversation. He decides they should wrap up the meeting for today. Rose puts on her jacket, knowing it's just as she expected. Convincing them isn't easy, because they are difficult people. She stands up and tells them she's leaving the rest to Grey. She steps out, wishing them luck with everything. She has made her decision, and there isn't much they can do to change her mind. Grey speaks calmly, reminding everyone that they are going to have to understand her choice anyway. He asks if they really need to overreact like that. One of the men speaks up and says he's hurt, but he can't do anything about it. He understands why the lady is making this choice, she's doing it for them. He asks if he's right in thinking that. He has heard there has been pressure from the Aga aristocracy lately, and wonders if that is why she is doing it. Grey nods and confirms that is correct. It's actually the Emperor putting the pressure on, but they don't need to know that. He thinks this man is really sharp. The man continues speaking, saying it's clear that the lady has her reasons for this decision, and the best they can do is to watch over her from the background. He reminds everyone how just a few years ago, they couldn't even put food on the table. They suffered from hunger, and had to say goodbye to their families. If they hadn't met Lady Rose, they wouldn't be here today. He asks if they all remember that day they swore to her. As long as she continues to provide for them, they will dedicate the rest of their lives to her, Lady Rose. Meanwhile, Casa is with Rose, and he comments that no matter how he looks at it, the place feels strange. She asks him if there's something wrong with her eyes. He responds that it's not enough to bewitch people. Then he jokes about whether there's some kind of romantic tension between them. He thinks the Duke might be different, but Rose admits that she feels really embarrassed right now too. She wonders why Casa is doing so much for her. Casa tells her to just let them be. Even if he said they could all live freely once the business is on track, these people will always stay by her side, because they love her, and they owe their lives to her. He places his hands on her shoulders and assures her that it's the same for him too. Casa is really close to Rose right now, staring deep into her eyes with an intense look. He thinks about how, if it wasn't for her, he would have died back then. He knows he wouldn't be alive today if he hadn't met her, so he's determined to stay by her side. Casa tells her that he will always be her sword. She can draw him and put him away whenever she wants, it's her choice. Rose replies that it's really all up to him. For Rose, just having him and the others by her side is more than enough. She doesn't think they need any extra things. She believes that Duke Aiton will be her shield in this fight. Casa, still holding onto her shoulder, asks if she trusts the Duke. She answers that she has to. The stage is set for what's to come. She knows that only those who are strong and persevere today will see tomorrow. Those are wise words that stick with her. Rose promises herself that she will never give up on this fight. She will protect everyone around her, and she must protect herself too. She can feel that war is coming, and she believes she's ready for whatever happens next. The butler, Jack, is with the Duke right now. He tells the Duke that he has done his investigation again, but there's still nothing new to find out about Madame Rose. The last information he got about her was cut off in Aga. It's going to take more time to send someone there to confirm the details. The young master, Khan Van, says that it's all right. Jack then asks if Khan is really thinking about swearing to the temple. He is worried that mixing the sacred life and prestige of the Aiton family with something that goes against their divine status could lead to trouble. He doesn't want anything bad to happen to Khan, because of a woman whose identity is still a mystery. Khan Van replies that it doesn't matter to him. He has already made up his mind. He tells Jack to send a message to Lady Rose, asking her to meet him at the temple in a week. A week later, Rose and Khan Van are at the temple together. Before they meet the priest, Rose asks Khan to wait a moment. She wants to know if he has anything to say privately. Khan looks into her eyes, and she can't help but remember her dreams about him and his almost naked body. Every time she sees his face, those dreams come rushing back. In her mind, she tells herself to stop thinking about it. She has never seen a man's naked body, not once in her life. Khan then says that thinking about it is lewd and sexually promiscuous, which surprises her. Rose retorts, asking how he sees it as lewd when she's definitely not promiscuous. Khan repeats her words back to her, then insists that it's not that. Rose stands firm and says there's no reason to suspect promiscuity since she is meeting the Duke for the first time. Khan agrees with her and smiles cheekily, saying it's cool if she wants to insist on that. She insists that she is not insisting. The contract they made is just about ensuring they both have freedom in their private lives. Khan holds up the contract and says he has never seen such a lewd contract before. That's all he wants to say about it. Rose explains that sometimes vague conditions can lead to misunderstandings. She feels that the way things were written gave him the wrong impression. She thinks it's better to be clear, even if it comes off as blunt. Honestly, she admits she doesn't know much about love. She doesn't have any good memories of marriage. It's not that she dislikes men. If she let her narrow-minded thinking control her, she wouldn't have made it far in life. She wouldn't have been able to run a successful business and build a name for herself in a new place. She believes that if personal feelings are mixed up in a contract made for practical reasons, it can create awkwardness for both sides. Since there isn't any emotional attraction between them, she apologizes to the Duke. He responds that he's fine with it and accepts her terms. This makes her happy. He holds out the piece of paper in his hand and asks if she wants to look over the contents one last time before they move forward. She takes a look at it, and he says it's okay if she's fine with it now, but he wants to know if she trusts him since they are about to make this pledge. Rose looks him in the eye and answers honestly, saying no, not at all. He tells her that he appreciates her honesty. Rose asks Khan Van if he proposed a contract to her, because he trusts her, and he simply replies no. These two are quite the pair. Khan Van explains that he proposed the contract not out of trust, but because he is interested in her. He thinks the world is simple, the strong survive and the weak don't. In that kind of world, he, as the Duke and a master swordsman, rules as an absolute leader. Life can get really boring. But meeting her changes things. Here is someone fragile, who seems like she could fall apart with just a touch, yet she radiates a strong will that surprises him. She is such a mystery to him, and he finds it fascinating. She is a woman who brings a little interest into his otherwise carefree life. He asks her why she wants to know. Is she curious about how far their deal can go? Both of them understand that it won't be a smooth journey. Rose wants to speak, but holds back her thoughts. It feels like he's trying to warn her about something. She wonders if this is really the right choice. Did she make a mistake? Will this decision lead to her doom or her salvation? She struggles with these thoughts in her mind, but decides firmly that there is no other option for her except him. No regrets. They walk into the temple together to make their pledge. The pledge is done, and the priest smiles as Rose hands over a parcel of money. She tells him she is grateful, and that she'll use the money for the sanctuary. The Duke ignores her completely and takes her hand. They look like a young couple getting married, walking together in a holy ceremony. The priest takes his leave, and Khan Van kisses her knuckles. He congratulates her on becoming a woman of 18. He adds that if she breaks the promise, her heart will be broken. Rose replies that he should take care of his heart too so it won't shatter as well. Later, she is back at her place talking to Gray. He mentions that now that they have a new contract, if she is going to live with the Duke in the future, it might be better to move the Chaos headquarters there. But Rose refuses. She wants it to stay in the capital, because that's where the higher class lives. The upper part just settled in Terran, and they really need to watch the movements of the nobles in Aga. This decision is also for the upper part, because she and the Duke have agreed to pretend to be lovers, and they need to do that properly. Gray tells her that it's not an issue, he just doesn't want her to bear everything alone. He offers to help her if things get too tough. He is very caring and assures her that he will always be there for her. However, he thinks Rose is the kind of person who would rather face her problems head-on. She has built up her strength, and it's hard for her to ask for help from others. In her heart, she wants to tell Gray everything, but instead of speaking, she just holds his hand. In her mind, Rose thinks about the future she sees in her dreams. Those dreams make her anxious, but she keeps quiet about it. Gray is someone she can rely on like a father, but she knows he has his own life to live. She tells him to come to the Duke after he gets things organized at the guild. Casa is eavesdropping at the door and has listened to their entire conversation. He just smiles at what he hears. Rose says she will go to Kasarang first and will be waiting for them there. The young master looks out into the vastness of space, lost in his thoughts. He knows that women involved with the Aiton family usually don't have good endings. His mother's experience is a clear example of this. He strongly believes that if he starts to develop real feelings for Rose, beyond just simple interest, she will end up unhappy too. It's a sad way to think, but he can't help it. He tells himself that if that day ever comes, she shouldn't regret anything. After all, she was the one who approached him first, not knowing what the outcome would be. She made her choice, so whatever happens is on her. Meanwhile, Rose gets into her carriage and sets off for Kasarang to meet the young master. Inside the carriage heading to meet the Duke, Casa sits with Rose. He is her escort and notices that she seems to have something on her mind. Casa encourages her to speak freely. Rose asks him if he has developed any interest in the Duke. Casa laughs and says he's not that kind of person. No matter how handsome the young master is, he is just not into men. Suddenly, the carriage comes to a stop. Rose looks out the window and wonders why they have halted so abruptly. Casa steps outside to check. It turns out the carriage in front of them is blocking the road, and their driver is being yelled at by another man. The man pulls out his sword and tries to swing it at their unarmed driver. Rose is shocked and quickly calls for Casa to step in. He reacts fast and stops the blade mid-swing with a small sword of his own. The man yells at him, demanding to know who he is. Casa refuses to tell someone like that his identity. He thinks it's shameful for a knight to be swinging a sword at a child. Casa looks at the young boy, who is their carriage driver, and feels sorry for him because he is crying. Casa gently pats the boy on the head and tells him to go to Rose. He assures the boy that he will handle the shameless knight. The knight keeps going on, complaining that they have the nerve to approach their carriage without permission. He says they are carrying a noble in their carriage, so they should have asked Marquis Brill to move aside. He claims he is only doing his duty by reprimanding their driver since he is a knight responsible for the nobles. Then he questions why Casa is protecting the young boy, their carriage driver. Casa doesn't like what the knight is saying. He steps closer and pulls out his sword, asking the knight what he is talking about. Rose sees the tension rising and knows a fight might break out. She quickly turns to the young boy, telling him that it's going to take a while and inviting him into the carriage for a meal while they wait. The boy happily agrees and grabs a cookie. After some time, Rose calls out to Casa. She knows him well and understands that he has a noble heart. He really dislikes self-entitled people like the shameless knight. Casa has been toying with the knight for a while now, and Rose can tell that he isn't impressed with the knight's lack of real knightly skills. She watches as the encounter seems to go on forever. The young boy comments that Casa seems quite bored these days. Rose wonders if she should step in and stop Casa, or let him continue to torment the knight a little longer. The young boy tells Rose that she can stop Casa now. He warns her that if she gets in trouble for being late to see the Duke, it would be really bad. Rose calls out to Casa, telling him to stop his tormenting. Casa frowns and says they haven't even started yet. Rose feels bad for Casa and apologizes on his behalf, explaining that he might have gone a little too far. She notices that the carriage wheel is being repaired, so she offers to help. She tells the knight that she knows someone in the Chaos Guild, so he won't be charged for repairs if he goes there. The knight, full of pride, says that Marquis Brill isn't out of money, so Rose should save her advice for beggars. Rose thinks for a moment. If it's Marquis Brill, that family was kicked out to the north. They must be quite noble. She notices they don't even bother to show their faces with all the chaos happening outside the carriage. The knight steps closer, as if waiting for instructions, then comes back to say that Marquis Brill won't inquire about their wrongdoing, but he can't let them disrespect the Marquis without punishment. Rose wonders what the shameless knight could possibly do since he can't even stop Casa. The knight says he will take away a wheel from their carriage. He claims that the Marquis said he should make them pay the price. Rose thinks that's complete nonsense, but she agrees with him to keep the peace. Still, she knows that the wheel being repaired doesn't look like it needs to be changed. The knight asks if they can't fix it, and Rose replies no. She tells him they will just break the wheel themselves, and that way it will definitely need a replacement. Rose feels completely confident in the situation. She tells the knight not to worry, because her subordinates are very skilled, so there won't be any harm to the people inside the carriage. She gives Casa the go-ahead to begin. Casa moves toward the wheel, but the knight suddenly screams for them to wait a minute. Casa responds that he really shouldn't be bothered by the knight. He warns that if the knight hits the wheel one more time, it will break, so the knight should just relax. Casa assures him he will be done with it really soon. Just then, the Marquis steps out of the carriage, demanding to know what they are doing to his carriage. The carriage is carrying Marquis Brill and his daughter. Rose sees that they are dressed in very fancy, stylish outfits. It's clear they must be on their way to meet Duke Aiton. Rose greets the nobles politely and introduces herself. The Marquis looks surprised and asks if hammering on a carriage while people are riding in it is too much. Rose replies that she didn't think so. He reminds her that he asked for the wheel of the carriage to be removed, so she was just going to handle it quickly. Rose mentions that she finds herself in a bit of a dilemma since they are both on their way to meet Duke Aiton as well. The Marquis wants to know what he will do if she successfully takes off the wheel. Then he pauses for a moment and asks if she just said she is on her way to see the Duke too. Rose replies that they have been invited, and she asks if they weren't invited as well. The Marquis thinks for a little while and takes a good look at Rose. His daughter also wonders who this lady is. She has heard that Duke Aiton has black hair too, so she starts to think that maybe Rose is part of the royal family. It reminds her of a cousin in the Viscount family, which is strangely annoying to her. If you're eager for the next chapter, drop a comment expressing your interest in a part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and ensure to hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time.